Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. On today's review, we take a look at the Mezco Marvel PX exclusive Magneto. Today I'll be reviewing this figure in the following categories: accessories, articulation, design, is it essential to your collection, functionality, and price. Once those scores are totaled, I'll give you my opinion if this figure is a pass or a purchase. So this review, I'm using a new lighting system. We'll see if this proves to be better or worse than the previous light setup that I had. So if some images are darker or brighter than usual, it's because of the new setup. It seems that I don't review a lot of Mezco figures. I have to change that around as I have quite an extensive Mezco collection. So for accessories, we get a base and stand as well as a Mezco bag to include our accessories. Before I jump onto the head, we receive 3 pair of hands in total. So each of the hands have a white finish with some silver. I'm just going to try to bring this light in. Hopefully that enhances it a little bit. Where do I go next? Let's go to the head sculpt. So we receive 1 of 2 head sculpts, and I really like this. It is a bit lighter than the flesh tone of the rest of his body. Let me just bring the figure in for a moment. But nevertheless, I think it does look good. Really like the lighter reddish tone to the lips as well as the eyes, or under the eyes rather. So pretty happy with this. And we receive these awesome accessories. This one I'm not particularly fond of. I do, however, like this part. I'm not going to talk much about it now, but we certainly will talk about this during the functionality part. And I'm assuming that this is magnetic. We'll see how that works during the functionality part. Now, this accessory right here, this absolutely takes the show. Now, this accessory is so dope that I'm just willing to give Magneto a high score just based on the creative thinking that went into doing this. This is fantastic, and Mezco is absolutely one of the best when it comes to new ideas as far as accessories. Like, we pay this high price for these hot toys, and we don't receive innovative things like this. So here is just a gun just being completely unassembled. The bullets are being taken out. This thing looks fantastic. I am very happy with this accessory. So for accessories, I feel that it's a little bit on the light end. I think that this Magneto should have been a deluxe, coming in at about $100. I would have liked to seen unhelmeted version, excuse me, not an unhelmeted version, rather a helmet with no head inside, or either a helmet with a black face painted. As I just remember this Magneto character in most of his comic appearances just always having that unseen face underneath the helmet. Or even an accessory sort of to hold the helmet as it's floating. I know Sideshow has something similar with their Magneto figure. One of the things that I would have liked to see is additional accessory pieces like the excellent, or effective pieces, excuse me, like the excellent ones that we did receive. I would have liked to see that protective shield that Magneto normally has around his body. I think one way that they could have done that, they could have used this base here, maybe in this exception, make this much larger, make it a bit translucent, and then have some sort of lightning effects painted in. I think that would have done well for this figure. So for overall accessories, I'm going to give Magneto a 7 out of 10. So for articulation, didn't mean to do that. The head is able to look up about that much. The helmet is a bit restricted because of this part of the helmet coming down, bumping into the body. So I would like the head to look up a lot higher, being that this is a flying character. So the head moves forward that much. It does rotate. You get a great amount of pivot, and you get some forward and back movement. The arm is able to lift up about that much. It does rotate a full 360 if you choose to do so. You do have an uppercut at the bicep. Going down, the next point of rotation is actually at the gauntlet. And then you have another point of rotation at the wrist. The wrist is on a ball peg. It's able to move side to side as well as up and down if you get it on the right angle. The elbows are double jointed, bending in about that much. You also have a butterfly joint, which allows Magneto arm to move forward a very small amount and backwards even smaller. So moving on to the torso, you have an A and a B portion. So just using the A, Magneto is able to crunch forward about that much, backwards much further, and you're able to get tilt, pivot, rotation. Using the combination of the two, Magneto is able to move forward about that much, backwards about that much, great amount of pivot as well as rotation. So the legs are able to stretch out about this much, maybe a little bit further, but I feel the fabric pulling, so I'm going to stop at this point. The legs are able to move forward about that much, backwards that much. You do have upper rotation. Hard to tell if there is an upper thigh cut. I don't think so. The knees are double jointed, bending in about that much. You do have a point of rotation at the boot. The foot is able to go down that much, forward that much, and not so great pivot. So for articulation, without the exception of the limitation of the head, pretty good. This is all that you would need for a Magneto figure. So for overall articulation, I'm going to give this figure an 8 out of 10. So the stand does a pretty good job of holding the weight of the figure. The higher you have him, the better, as if you lower it, it seems to move forward a little bit. But moving on to the design aspect of this figure, there are some things that I like and not so things that I'd care for. So moving on to, I guess, my issues or my wants. The first thing to me that's missing from this figure would be the beaded armor piece that's usually around the collar of Magneto, though I have seen versions that just have this, I guess, 2 buttons that are located around there, so I won't be deducting points for that. Now, one thing that seems common with most images that I can pull up from this figure is that around the gauntlets, there are these beaded bracelets, and that's absolutely missing from this figure, and I think it would have added a bit more pizzazz to it. One of the other things that I am certainly saddened about would be the belt. It is certainly missing the red Xmen logo, as well as having the individual pouches. That reminds me of Batman utility belt. Just panning down a little bit on the figure, there are other inaccuracies, such as the boots. I were able to pull images to where they were all or mostly white, but then this area here is done black. I think it looks black in camera, but I assure you it's not. It's a gray. And perhaps the last issue that I have is when you use fabric goods, you can't really do shading. That's the one benefit that plastic has over fabric. Now, to some of the things on this figure that I really like is the mezco interpretation, which usually I do not. But I feel with this particular figure and this design, even in the comics, he has a very similar look. So to where this usually stands out as most of the time as an eyesore to me, I think in this situation it looks pretty good. In addition, I really like the color white that mezco used. It is nearly see-through, being that you can see parts of the flesh tone underneath. Not sure if that's coming out well on camera or not. Also, the stitch work is exceptional. I remember with a lot of the earlier releases, their stitch work was kind of ugly, but they have gotten much better, even in the insides. And just going up to the head, as I was talking about with accessories, I think we should have had a version of a head sculpt to where the inners of that helmet was all black. So for design, I'm going to give Magneto a 6 out of 10. So is Magneto essential to your collection? If you are an X-Men fan and you have X-Men characters, absolutely. Magneto is an essential villain. So absolutely, he is essential. To where this version will lose some points, it's not the most prominent version of Magneto. He is mostly known for his purple or maroon suit. And Mezco has already provided us with a version of that Magneto. In addition, we have several versions of Magneto from Marvel Legends, and the reason I bring that up because these figures are very close in scale. So I will be deducting points being that this is not his iconic version. I will be deducting points being that Mezco has provided us another version, and I will also be deducting points as we have another company that produces this figure and is able to fit within scale. So as far as being essential to your collection, I'm going to give this version of Magneto a 4 out of 10. So for functionality, let's start with the head. Let's remove this version for a moment, and let's just take a look at this part of the cape. So some of the stitching, as you can see right here, is starting to peel away from the cape. So I don't like that very much. I know in time that's only going to get worse. And I'm unsure of exactly how to have this. As here you can see the buttons, but it just doesn't want to stay up all the way around. So I wish this was done a bit better. So now with the alternate head, it's able to go on very easy. With this head scope, I'm assuming we get more range of movement as far as looking up. We do, but it's not a lot different. So now just continuing down, let's start with the cape. I really like how the cape sits and how it flows. Let's zoom out for a moment. I like the material that's used, some sort of leather type of material, but it's certainly not leather. And we do have a bendy wire at each end. Now, what I wish, or what I would have liked rather, is having bendy wire even in the middle or within one of the other pleats. It just would have allowed you to do a lot more with the cape itself. Now, with the soft goods, one thing that I like is that it doesn't restrict really any movement in this figure with the exceptions of the legs, and Magneto is not a character that you need to do a full 360 or a full split, excuse me. So looking at the stand test, I haven't had an issue standing Magneto. He's been standing very easy on his own. So now let's just take a look at the hands that he comes with. Okay, so I want to remove the open hand and put the fisted hand back on him, which pops on very easily. And just set up the hands for a moment. All right, so let's pop each of these hands off. And let's talk about this for a moment before we put it on. For those of you that have watched my Storm Collectible reviews, this is what they need to do. When you have a effect piece, attach the hand directly to the effect piece. This works so much better. It's only one way that this can be used, so why not attach the hand to it? This is genius. This is the way that more companies should implement such things like this. So it pops on very easy. Now, my concern is to see how exactly does it hold metal type items. So here I have the lightest of the items, which I have, a penny. And I'm first going to see how it holds on one end. The penny doesn't hold, which I'm not surprised. I'll see if I can find a dime. I'm going to go next to the middle in weight item that I have. That holds very easy and it does not weigh the hand down. And now I'm going to go to the heaviest item that I have. Not sure if this is going to stay at all. It does not stay. Okay, so I came across some other items. Here's the dime. That does not work. Here's a washer that I have. And here is a screw. Now what I want to see, okay, so that does not weigh the hand down, and that's what I was worried about. So now on to the last of the effect pieces. This looks absolutely amazing. It does bring the hand down just a little bit. It is a heavier effect piece, so it's not something that I would leave attached to Magneto continuously in this position. I'm pretty sure over time that the arm joint will start to fail. But not worrying about later, looking at now, I love it. So for functionality, all accessory pieces work tremendously with this figure, and it is such a relief as I've been having some challenges in the last few of my reviews. So for overall functionality, I'm going to give Magneto a 9 out of 10. So for pricing, Magneto comes in at $80. That is before taxes, that is before shipping. Depending where you order it from, depending where you live, that can be anywhere from $85 to $92. However, for me, I was able to score a deal on this figure. I paid $72. That was before tax, and shipping was free. So this figure came out to about $77 for me. So now is Magneto worth the price of admission? So he comes with limited accessories. But what's important to remember is that the accessories that he do come with, they are fantastic and work very seamlessly with this figure. Also, I like the design. There are certainly some things that I would like to change. I am absolutely going to look for a replacement belt for this figure. Maybe I'll just wait for Hasbro to come out with their version and I'll take that off and place it here. But aside from that, the white, black, and grays really work well together. And where mezco interpretation, in my opinion, spirals out of control sometimes, I feel this is a well-like and blended balance. Given this much articulation, given the innovation when it comes to effect pieces, having a stand, the cloth goods, I feel that this is a fair price. I do think that this is a figure that should have been a deluxe and came with some additional accessories, maybe some lightning effect pieces, maybe additional force fills around the hand as well as the body. So for pricing, I'm going to give Magneto a 10 out of 10. And that would give Magneto an overall cliff score of 44 out of 60. And this figure could have scored a lot higher. It really took hits as far as being essential and in the design aspect. So is this Magneto a pass or a purchase? This is a little bit of a tough one as it depends on your connection to this particular version of Magneto. I actually skipped the first release from Mezco because I wanted this one. I felt that this one and its interpretation was a lot better or closer to the comics than the one that we had before this. So for me, this is a great figure. It's a purchase. Here's Magneto on his own. Here he is next to Quicksilver, Marvel Legends Wolverine, Jean Grey, and here he is next to his Marvel Legends self. So the cape on this Magneto was holding him down, but here is what I meant earlier when I was talking about the pieces that were missing here. I absolutely have to change this cape. Here he is next to Marvel Legends Gambit. I have to get the mezco version of Gambit. If you're looking out for that figure, you may want to pick that up sooner than later as the price is starting to increase. And last but not least, here he is next to McFarlane's version of Spawn. So I want to thank you for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. I hope to see you during the next review.